So before we turn to the second panel, I want to ask everyone who's here who has taught in the summer program, the American Law program, the LL.M courses here in the summer. So if all those faculty would stand up. Professor Marson, I see you. Sarah.
Taught in the programs.
Catherine Klein, that's right. Paul.
Do I count?
Yes, you can. And Paul, you're a teacher. He's also our externship director. Steve, you teach. Come on. What is this? All right. Is there anyone else hiding? Sarah. Every year I send 12 teachers to teach in the American Law program, and we pay them basically nothing, I will tell you. The amount that somebody gets for teaching a course, doing materials, grading 40 exams is like a pittance. But what I say to the American Law program students, of whom we have many who've been in the American Law program, is it's they that make my job possible. Because, Sarah said, the teachers love teaching in Poland. And I suppose this is part of being humble. One of the things I say about why it's so wonderful to teach in the American Law program is that Polish students are grateful. They're actually grateful for what you do. And American students, I think, understandably, because they pay huge amounts of money. I understand what creates a little bit more of a customer feeling. And Catholic has the most polite law students in the world. Our law students are wonderful and always polite and always lovely. But there's a quality of gratefulness about our experience with teaching Polish students that I think is one of the reasons, and an excitement about something new, and an excitement about a different method of teaching that really makes it enormously rewarding for the teachers. And now we have somebody else I want to recognize, and that is, I won't make you stand up, but everyone should turn and look at Ralph Rohner, our former dean. Under whose authority this all got started with RET. And we have to recognize, really more importantly, Monica Novak Rohner. Monica was our alumni director for many years, and having grown up in a largely Polish section of Baltimore, Monica and I actually took Polish classes together at the consulate a number of times. We didn't make as much progress as we would have liked to make, but Monica and Ralph visited the summer program and visited Poland many times. They were there for the 10th anniversary of the LL.M, and they've been enormous, wonderful supporters of the program. The last thing I want to say two things I want to say before we turn to the program. We have, for many years, Professor Lubikoski had established internships. Jude mentioned the possibility that she did an internship. In the library exhibit, they had a picture of Alex with his internship firm last summer. And he had a lot of wonderful relationships with Polish law firms who took our American students. This summer, we offered it for the first time as a 4-credit option, which was something that was long overdue because Catholic's known for its externship programs, and we should have had international ones a long time ago. Paul Kurth is our externship director. He was in Poland last year because we're required to meet with law firms that are interested in having our students, come to an agreement about what they would do. And so I particularly want to thank also Ewa Don-Siemion has been a host, Wojtek's firm was a host, Rafa Kosz's firm has been fabulous over the years and taken many students. Do we have anybody else from a firm who's taken our students in Poland? I think that's everyone here. I think the legal advisors in Krakow are now quite excited and interested to set up an agreement with us where they will work with us in finding places for the students, which is great. Here's my pitch now, though. The LL.M students have a visa that allows them to do an internship in the US. And the only bad part of my job as the LL.M director is finding these internships. That has been very stressful for me because they come at a funny time of year. They're end of July, August. I realize that's the best time of year. And somehow people just don't get their head around what a foreign LLM would do. Once people have done the internship, everybody's happy. The students say it's one of their best experiences. They love it. But this is a message to the American alumni out here. And this is something I want to figure out a way to tap into our summer program alumni, because they seem the most logical people to host people. So anybody in this room who has an idea about a placement in the US that would host an LLM student and it's usually a relatively short period of time, but it's something that would really, really, really help me and really, really help our students. And so that's one of the things in this panel, at the close of the panel, one of the things we also want to talk about today is a way to more capitalize on the asset of these programs. The fact that Catholic now has, more than 500 American alums and more than 500 Polish alums. We have our LL.M alums, we have our American Law Program alums. And is there a way that we can effectively connect them with our JD alums who are interested in international work and have more opportunities for the kind of referrals we were talking about, having more opportunities to make this asset work for that whole group of people. So just ideas about how to do that practically was something I would like to also have a little time for people to talk about at the end. So now we will move on with our next panel and start with Ewa.
Thank you. My only connection to the program that you're running is the fact that I taught legal writing and communicating with clients for about 3 semesters at the Jagiellonian University, and it was a fantastic experience for me. I hope that it was a good experience for students too. And what I think this whole theme today centers around is the certain growing geographic migration of legal jobs. And I want to speak about my personal experience. I went to school in Canada. I graduated from McGill Law School, then practiced with Sherman & Sterling in New York, then moved back to Poland to work for an international telecoms company. And finally, I started my own law firm, and I now do employment law. And the reason I do employment law is that Kraków and Poland is now a host, it's a top destination for business centers. And it's not business centers that do simple work, it's companies that develop proprietary software, that do strategic functions extremely important for their headquarters. So in Krakow, I remember getting off a taxi one morning and being surrounded by logos of firms such as State Street, Brown Brothers Harriman, HSBC, Aon, UBS, IBM, Euroclear Bank. It's amazing. If you just look at only at the financial sector, more than half of global financial firms are located in Poland and specifically in Krakow. And when you talk to the headquarters, to the board directors globally, they frequently will tell you that Krakow is their most important location after their global headquarters. Because obviously, if you are, for instance, if you are a financial institution, development of software is crucial. It's now, banks are really technological companies with just a couple of bankers at the front. So I do employment law for some of those clients because as they employ thousands of people, I think the biggest is IBM with 10,000, but Credit Suisse has 6,000 employees, UBS 5,000, so these are big numbers. So for them, the employment relations are crucial, and that's why I do it. But what I want to draw your attention to is another factor, which is a little scary maybe for some of us, and that is that on the back of this movement to move certain business functions to Poland, now legal outsourcing is coming to Poland. And I have done a project with a global insurance company where they outsourced negotiating, they outsourced to my Polish lawyers with no foreign qualifications, English contracts that we negotiated on their behalf. And now I'm actually in talks with a global institution to do some aspects of their international securities law issues. So the reason I'm talking about this is that if you think that we are immune geographically from encroachments of other jurisdictions, I think that's wrong. And no matter how ethically or unethically this turns out to be, this is the reality. And I think we will see more processes outsourcing legal job from one jurisdiction to another jurisdiction and taking the benefit of internationalization of people, as many of you in the previous panel spoke about the fact that people have experienced different cultures, know the languages, and can easily, at least sectionally, learn law of another jurisdiction and then provide service to this other jurisdiction. I think this is a new wave that will come not only to Poland, not only to Krakow, but it will affect other countries as well. Thank you. Thanks.
Good morning. My name is Matthew Majkut. I've learned this morning from some of my colleagues that I've been pronouncing my Polish last name incorrectly for the past 35 years. But I'm really grateful to be here. Catholic's a special place to me, and it's given me so much. So when presented with the opportunity to speak here this morning, of course I embrace the chance to talk about cross-border, what I do. And I think from our previous panel was a great opportunity because mentioning the definition of what a lawyer is. I know Julie had mentioned herself as being a wild card. I echo that. I was part of the securities law program under Professor Lipton. I hadn't taken any international courses. It was pretty straight securities law. That was my path. Where I found myself through career services and so much of the involvement that the law school provides is an unexpected opportunity with a large company like IBM. Where I started my career in data privacy. And at the time, it meant very little. It was with a technology company, really understanding, okay, so I know unlawful protection against unlawful search and seizure, but really with data protection, data privacy, has become, in the past 8 or 9 years, is really significant. And it makes our world so much smaller. Not just focusing on jurisdictions, issues, business risk at a local level, but really internationally. So what do I do? So the traditional notion of a lawyer, I think we talked about employment law or securities law, contracts law. I assess risk. So I work with large companies, small companies, local, international, and talk about data. I work across lines with mergers and acquisitions, due diligence. Incident response is very significant in understanding, okay, what data is out there, what's its value, its sensitivity level, how do we need to triage, who are the stakeholders, customers, government supervisory authorities, outside counsel, who's getting sued, who needs to communicate, and that's really critical at an international level. And exposes me to a lot of course, different law, working with local counsel, supervisory authorities, responding in a way where we have to understand multiple jurisdictions. And at a time, and the GDPR has already been mentioned, which just kind of makes me smile, the General Data Protection regulation is Europe's version of pretty comprehensive data protection. Now what's happening with that? It's been the past year building up to that. So what do? I work with clients and discuss what is their preparation, how do they protect data, what are their internal processes, and how can they be compliant? How can they use that compliance as a business enabler? Talk about accepted risk, risk that they're willing to accept from a business perspective, while taking into account what the regulations are in different markets. And that's happening in the States now. So I see compliance as an issue. And that's what I'm here to talk about is compliance and my career path into compliance with respect to data privacy and security and how that's different, becoming more different over the past few years and really where the opportunities are. I'm really pleased to see there was a poster out in the atrium about a data protection panel coming up. It's such a fast-moving area to be in that forces you to collaborate, engage, constantly learn about all of this new regulation and how one jurisdiction affects another and another and another. And what we're finding just after the GDPR was effective this year, enforced, is it coming to the States. California, there's what's called the California Consumer Protection Act, and that's going to be effective in 2020. But that's going to force organizations to really reach out to their counterparts and their other operations and other jurisdictions. So I'm very pleased to be here. I think there's a tremendous amount of opportunity. I do have regrets of not being involved in this program while I was a Catholic, but I think the opportunities that are presented here through the Shared Services Program at Krakow just present a tremendous amount of opportunity for those that are involved. Thank you.
Good morning. First of all, thank you, Professor Ward, and all professors of Catholic University for this great event. So today we're talking about technologies, how technologies are affecting the legal profession. We live in a world where everything is online. We chat, we book, we study, we work, we vote online. Now we settle disputes online as well. So with the rapid development of electronic commerce and the internet, online dispute resolution mechanisms are needed to help to resolve disputes online, both between people living anywhere in the world, in a manner that is fast, cost-effective, and obviously fair. So with this in mind, the European Union has established a platform that's called Online Dispute Resolution that allows consumers and traders located in different European countries, in Norway, in Iceland, and Liechtenstein, to settle disputes relating to online purchases, goods, and services with assistance of an impartial dispute resolution body. The process is very easy. It's composed of 4 steps, actually. The complaint party, consumer or trader complains an online complaint on the platform and then submits the dispute. Then the ODR platform transmits the complaint to the respondent party, who has almost 10 days to identify an ADR entity, only 2 bodies who are included in the national list and qualified under the online dispute resolution platform. And once the ADR entity is agreed by both parties, then the ODR platform transmits the complaint to the entity and has 90 days to resolve these disputes. As you can see, the technology is affecting the legal profession. The legal profession is changing so fast. But there are also, in my opinion, that I think that we can discuss later on, that the technology can negatively affect the legal profession in the near future. I'm talking about artificial intelligence, machine learning in this case. We have to be aware of the possibility of an active replacement of a traditional work, legal profession. And the lawyers must be aware that lawyers who are unwilling to change their working practices and expand the range of service will, in the coming decade, struggle to live. We have a lot of artificial intelligence working in the legal profession. We are talking about, for instance, the Lex Machina was established in Stanford as a machine learning tool which provides legal services, legal analytics, and predict outcomes of patent cases by analyzing information from millions of pages of litigation information. We have also Logix, that's artificial intelligence engine reads and analyzes incoming contracts. We have Legal Zoom, that's a company offering automatic online legal document assembly and prepared legal services plan, and was used this software very recently in California, and it created 20% of California limited liability companies established in 2011. In addition to artificial intelligence and machine learning, there are also virtual law firms is having a strong impact on the legal profession. I'm talking about Axiom, for instance. Their website explains that they are no law firms. They cannot do that because they can be under the USA ethical rules. So after this short topic that I explained, I would like to, I just put below some notes and questions that I would like to share with you. For instance, when using artificial intelligence in a law firm, there are obviously ethical issues in lawyers using artificial intelligence. I'm talking about duty of competence, for instance, or specifically the duty of a supervisor that will have been involved. What should be disclosed to the client when are you using artificial intelligence? Do we need a written consent from the clients? How to evaluate and ensure the quality of human processes and work product? Or when a technology makes a mistake that fall below the standard of care, who will be liable for that? Manufacturers or the managing partner? There are vicarious liability. Can a technology provider be deemed engaged in the practice of law? Is that machine learning an authorized practice? Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. As the Dean of the Jagiellonian Law School, I would like firstly to underline that this American program and LL.M program and our different kind of cooperation with the Catholic University of Washington change also our thinking about how we should learn as the students. After the creation, the first legal clinic, after the creation, the American legal program for the students, we also try to change our system and create more workshops, more interactive kinds of teaching. Now our students may also profit because of this program, not only because they participate in this program, but they in this way we change also our curriculum. So we have more workshops. For example, Rafał Kos teaches our students about Polish civil procedure. Our students participate in the international moot courts with very good results. We create the Center for Alternative Dispute Resolutions, so our students are taught about the mediation, negotiation, and other kinds of ADR. But I would say a little bit about a new program. So there's a new program, master program created in our law school in this year, and we started 1st October this year. With a new master program on IP law and new technologies. So this program was established in cooperation with Patent Office of Republic Poland and World Intellectual Organization seated in Geneva. So this self-funding entity of the United Nations, and they support this program. This is the second program in Europe. supported by WIPO, and we will teach about IP law, about the international and European IP law. Why it is important also for American lawyer and for American firms, I can show only two cases of judgment, two cases, two judgments of Court of Justice of European Unions. So it is a case Oracle, and there is a case Louis Vuitton versus Google. So in the first case, Oracle marketed software programs and provides the license, which was not transferable. But the clients resell this software license, and the problem is whether it's the acquirer of this license is lawful acquirer according to European law. And the German Supreme Court put the question in a preliminary ruling procedure for interpretation of the European law about this, about the directive on software, on protection of softwares. And the Court of Justice of the European Union should interpret whether through the license the acquirer is authorized to resell this competence, this license to another person. However, it was not the sale contract. Because in the case of the sale contract, the right to distribution of computer program is equated. And the European Court of Justice had to interpret this provision and compare whether this license contract is, from economical point of view, is similar to the sales contract. And second case, it was the case of Louis Vuitton versus Google, when Louis Vuitton sued the Google because of infringement of its trademark, because Google offers special service, so-called sponsored links. So when the internet users, they enter some words, constitute the Louis Vuitton trademarks, so it occurred the links to the company which offer imagination of the Louis Vuitton products. So the Louis Vuitton company claims not this company which manufactured the imagination of its products, but the Google, because of infringement of the trademark. So those cases shows what important is the European law regarding the IP law for American companies and for American lawyers. So we will try to learn international students about European law, about international law on intellectual property, and we will see whether this program would be successful. So now we have only 23 students, but I hope that we will have more students also from United States or perhaps another countries. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Tomasz Chmal, and in Poland we do have a law on education in sobriety and counteracting alcoholism. So I hope I will not be arrested due to the bottle I brought with me from Poland. But is there anybody in the class who does know the taste of żubrówka? Well, that's what I expected, but I will get back in a second to this point. But let me start from a short step back to 1998, when I arrived in DC, thanks to Professor Ludwikowski's invitation to Catholic. And we spoke a lot about digital era, about artificial intelligence, about data protection, about the new technologies. But back in 1998, when I arrived to this campus and this building, there was no social media, there was no smartphones. Well, actually, one of my colleagues helped me to set up my first email account on Yahoo. I mean, who remembers Yahoo these days? There was no Google, of course, right? No amazing. So that's how it looked 20 years ago. Here we are in completely new times and completely new era. But there are some things that do not change a lot. There are things that remain similar. And but what happened in 1998? I mean, I got internship with Hogan Hartson, these days Hogan Lovells, and had a great privilege to work with Joe Bell, who is a partner at the firm, dealing with energy issues. And he put me into an energy world. So next 20 years I spent in doing energy transactions, energy projects, both coal mines, distribution, transmission, and also renewables. So this was my time, and obviously thanks to CUA, thanks to Joe Bell, Red, I had this privilege to work on sort of old-fashioned transactions, not the digital ones. But what was important for me, thanks to this opportunity I got from Red and Joe, I thought that would be good to invite students from Catholic to White & Case 1 to 3 a year, and try to show them, how it looks over to work in the international law firm and what energy is all about. There are already about 20 people that went through the internship with me in White & Case. They do work with Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, Department of Justice, Federal Drug Administration, a number of offices in DC. And I will have a chance to meet with them today and tomorrow, and it's a great opportunity. And I'm leading to the point, to the things that do not change that much over years. These are relations. This is network. These are people that we met over in our lives and that do make a change to us. And I think that the important part of it is to imagine what Red has created over in cooperation with Jagiellonian. 1,500 graduates, half from the US, half from Poland. This is absolutely unique network, absolutely unique opportunity for people to discuss with each other, to exchange ideas, and basically something that is real asset for both universities to build on. Because I don't see any other network of that type in Polish-US relations. I think Fulbright is far behind the network that CUA and Jagiellonian created. So this is exactly what is worth doing. Leah mentioned about the benefits from teaching classes. Leah did not mention something that I just purposely put on the table. I think this is very important factor, socializing. And this is something that is absolutely unique because we can all read books, we can all present our cases, we can do all the paperwork, but we will not be able to do it if we do not know people, we don't know how they react, and I think a glass of Żubrówka will help in this process.
Because everybody has been so good with time, we have at least 20 minutes for comments, questions, as we had before. And I do hope that some of that will also center on the idea of how to build on this asset. One of the things that happened, because the LM program is relatively small, we have about 80 some graduates, and I should recognize Kasia Striniak, who is one of our LM graduates and our LM coordinator. Gaspar Cote is our other coordinator and graduate. He has a scholarship to do PhD research in Heidelberg, and this was the only weekend the whole year he had to be in Germany. So unfortunately, he's not here. And Olga Horvath Campbell was the former LM coordinator until she moved to the United States. So we keep track of our LM regiments. I mean, we know where they are, and we, I think, have, and in part because of Gaspar and Kaja's good work, we do have an LM Facebook group, which we also use to attract people and so on. And, you know, and they keep it pretty active. One thing for you to think about, really, Tomasz was really the leader. He has been a mover about trying to get an alumni network going from the summer program. One of our problems is our lists aren't very good. We don't have the email address from the beginning. And the thing we weren't able to do very effectively for this reunion was to reach out to that group. Every person I've ever met who took the summer program loved it. So I know a lot of them, if they had really been in their consciousness, would have come. You know, and the question is, how do we communicate that? Because we don't have a very good mechanism for that. Under Tomasz's leadership, with Joe's help, we created a LinkedIn group. But what we've now been doing is Kasia and Gaspar have started pushing content on it because it has to have content. And one idea is to maybe change the name to CUA International and to seek to have any JDs who are interested in being international work, join maybe American law program students, you know, to make that. But the question is, and I'm not a huge personally social media person, is what way of connecting would actually work? You know, that wouldn't be like too much work, people wouldn't use it. So that's just something for people to think about. So let me throw it open to the group. Comments, questions? Yes.
Hi, I'm a third-year union student, and I've been working in the accounting finance business for the past 20 years. My question is, in my profession, we talk about imminent changes because of the new technologies like blockchain or cyber cryptocurrencies, and it has been, you know, everybody seems to be talking about it in the past decade. Are those changes affecting our profession as a lawyer? And if so, is there something that we should think about as a law student?
Yeah. As what I think, honestly, there will be a replacement of a lawyer in the near future. There will be a steadily decrease of the physical lawyer in the law firm, and also will be replaced from this new technology. So for now, what I see is just improve the skills in technologies and go ahead with this in this route. But in the near future, there will be a very drastically change of the legal profession. I don't know but I can imagine. As you know, the imagination is the most important knowledge, as Mark guy said. So that's what I can say to you right now.
I agree with you, Vincenzo. I think there's going to be and there is now a significant change in what the traditional notion is of I'm a lawyer practicing in this domain. When technology is introduced, it's certainly not the case where legislation can keep up. I mean, that's the wrong way to control technology, to regulate technology. So one has to do their best to keep up, and that's for awareness, participation, understanding. And again, I think that's part of the theme here, is this cross-border theme, is understanding I'm practicing in this domain. What other functions or factors are currently or could be influencing how I provide my client with the resources or the services that they need. So I think it's changing. I'm not sure that will be outsourced by a computer. I think it's really understanding how the rules are changing. and embracing that too, and getting ahead of it. Because there's a lot of, as scary as it is, there's a lot of opportunity there too, to be part of that change.
Well, for now, I think that what the technology changes is the stuff that we don't want to do anyway. It's the mundane stuff, repeatable stuff, the review of documents, document production. So I think it's wonderful that we don't have to do it anymore.
And one could argue too, is that providing a better service to a client if we can utilize this technology to provide greater accuracy, lower billable hours, so it's good for the client, maybe not the firm. But there's an argument to be had there where technology can be embraced and that.
We have to embrace it.
Yep.
One quick comment, the externship textbook that began at Catholic has a chapter about impact on legal services, market, and technology. It includes many of the examples we've been talking about, like Machina, Axiom, and so on. And personally, it's one of my missions that I think all law schools are not embracing this in the way they should, because I think it is the future that you will face. That's in the chapter. And that is one of the things I teach in my American Legal Profession course in Poland. I've now made it the centerpiece of my course, the idea of how technology is changing the paradigm. And I invite students to write, they have an essay part, so I've learned a great deal about things already happening in Poland. And I think the compliance initiative is a great opportunity here to focus on this, because I think the compliance area is particularly one where technology is out in the lead. Because as Ewa said, a lot of what this is an opportunity to take the really boring stuff that people always hated anyway. Albeit law firms pay a lot of money making associates and paralegals do that really boring stuff, but it was pretty mind-numbing. And that's the kind of thing that businesses can do a lot faster, cheaper, and more accurately. But as I think Vincenzo was saying, the interesting part, like thinking about how to do designing it, doing the quality control of it, the relationships with the people, and Tara was talking about a lot of corporate investigations also have a very human dimension. So, there are things I think in which we're not going to replace people for a long time, but if we just get scared of it and resist it, the question is really embracing it and starting to sort out what can be done effectively with technology and what people with intelligence and knowledge need to do that.
Yeah, so I want to add something to this discussion, and add it from a perspective that's missing here, which is, for example, international corporate attorney. Because I am seeing the same change in legal profession. When I was a young lawyer, when I graduated, the two most prestigious paths was you either went to the big law firm or you became a professor at a major university, and that was the way to go. That was the most prestigious way. What is happening now, that it has changed in the sense that lots of graduates are going to practice international law or practice actually combined international law with the major international corporations. And the way we do it is actually very interesting, because the role of the corporate lawyer has changed. It used to be like we were a guardian of the corporation, we looked at the laws, whereas right now we are far more business partner. And what is happening is the corporations, from a pure economic perspective, cannot have 30 different implementation of GDPR in European Union. We as a corporation are going to have one interpretation, one corporate program, one compliance program. So if you take, FCPA, for example, or GDPR, or Nagoya Protocol, I cannot have, I'm in 122 countries, I oversee 122 different jurisdictions, different lawyers. I cannot have 120 interpretations. So what I do, and what we all do, is the role of lawyers and our relationship with law firms and universities is changing radically. It used to be that we would have 2 or 3 outside law firms in every country, we would get their views, we would implement it on the local level. No longer. The corporate lawyers are the ones who essentially are amalgamating all this information, creating a corporate program, and maybe we will have some local, regulatory tweak for Taiwan versus China or what have you. But ultimately, it's the corporate lawyer who ends up being kind of like over international law, over jurisdiction. So it is interesting because we practice law. I am only qualified in Pennsylvania and DC, but I am effectively making legal decisions in Taiwan or Argentina. And so I think what is happening is this very interesting change in legal role and the relationship we have with law firms too. Law firms have also radically changed the way they service multinational clients. You know, it used to be that we would get very long opinions on law. Right now, it is far more risk-based. They understand the way they have to service multinational client. So we would use them, for example, for privilege reasons. Privilege is becoming a real issue. As a US attorney, for example, I have a privilege, but Polish attorney or your attorney in the European Union may not have a privilege if they work in a corporation. So if I have a major FCP investigation or some compliance issue, I would have to have as a cover, you know, I would have to hire an outside law firm for the privilege reasons. So there are so many interesting things that are happening. And talking to Vincenzo's talk about, you know, automation, or Eva's point about automation, yes, I agree, but, you know, right now, contracting in the major law firm, all those little things that used to be done, we can essentially, you know, like a lawyer, we have lots of lawyers who are specialists in one area. You basically build your contract from clauses, so you have data banks of clauses, you build the contract, you know, for whatever is necessary. But there is no lawyer drafting those things anymore. Due diligence, all those kind of things. But there is also decision making right now that's happening with the AI. So Watson can do things, you know, figuring out how to arbitrage different provisions of law. So I think this is a fascinating area of law, and it's, you know, the relationship within the profession and the relationship how lawyers practice law are going to radically change within the next 50, 20 years.
I'd love to follow this. I think that's great what you said. I agree with it. I'm living in it. I work at a large American law firm, Paul Hastings. And what I love about the firm is that I work within this small, agile group where we are lawyers and consultants, and we're working with the business leaders within organizations. We're working with their inside counsel. And there's this holistic approach where we understand what the landscape is for applicable regulation. We're talking about, in my area, it's data protection, privacy, and information. We're having that conversation level set. What are we looking at? And then working with business leaders, operating under privilege, I might add, and making business decisions based on accepted risk and strategy, short-term and long-term. So that's a very different role than the traditional notion of being risk-averse and following the letter of an applicable law as closely as possible. It allows for cross-function, cross-pollination, different groups working together. And again, I'll just say again, with privacy is a role that really there's no requirement that a chief privacy officer is an attorney, but they happen to be. And it's because of the ability to wear that legal hat and to also make business decisions. So I think that's a prime example of how in one way the field of law is changing. And I think that's reflecting too, again, with the world getting smaller and technology advancing so quickly.
Okay, Mark? Yes, okay, Wojtek, and then okay.
I would love to actually return to this notion of the network, because
You speak a little louder.
of course I would love to return to this point of the network between alumni, because what you said looks like we all have really similar problems. I mean, also in Poland, and replacing of lawyers and by artificial intelligence, etc. I mean, it's so close to each other. So, what do you think could be the first objective that we could achieve on creating a vigorous network of alumni that could benefit each other by exchanging experiences or anything else? Except for the battle, perhaps. That's the first good
It makes good company.
It's hard to do that virtually.
It just I think one has to have a vision. Basically, what this network is all about. Why should it be created? How it should look like over in 5 years' time. If we have a vision of so how many people shows up at the meeting like that, or any other meeting in 2 years' time, in 3 years' time. If we see people in a room, it means that this meetings and create a value for them. That's why they spend their time, they spend their money on travels, on whatever. expenses related to it because this created a value. So vision is first, and then is the execution. Execution is obviously a matter of leadership and data management. We have number of data, but there has to be a lot of effort to put to create this sort of vivid, to give the people opportunity to put their data on a website, on LinkedIn, on whatever profile they want to build upon. So, but obviously the most important part of it is are the values and the purpose. And I think that the purpose of the network is in number of reasons. People have personal purpose, and they just want to share data. And the success of the social media is actually the great example that people do share their private data with the world. And obviously there's some risk related to it, but people do it. So people do have the emotion, and especially if we create a group and people want to share the data, what they need, what they're up to, what they're looking for. Are they looking for people? Are they willing to hire for someone? Are they willing to organize an internship? Are they willing to share some draft contract for whatever data management is needed? So people have needs, and these needs could be accumulated in the network. So it should basically work like social media, like any other social media, except for that would be mostly lawyers. There would be lawyers from 2 countries or a few other countries, because there are also German graduates and people from Italy and a number of other countries. So it's sort of global already, and so. But we started it. We put these, or Joe put these LinkedIn profile, and there's 184 records. It's not very active, so it seems like people not necessarily need it. So there's a big question mark. What to do? What in terms of operational? What could we do to put these sort of more vivid? I don't have all the answers, but that's how I see it.
Haven't forgotten you, but anybody else did you want to comment on this point or a different one?
It's related to that.
Go for it.
So my name is Kevin Springer. I completed the program over the summer, this past summer, and it was fantastic. The Polish students that we collaborated with really welcomed us into their homes and their lives, into their culture, and I look forward to reciprocating that when they come over this summer. But one of the issues that they were asking us about is about the internship program and how it would work in DC. And I think that one of the things that the internships would be competing with is the summer associate model of the big firms in DC. Law students from all over the country come into DC for the summer. So I think going back to one of the panelists' points about having the vision of how to distinguish an internship for an international student from the summer associate model that the big firms are used to would be very helpful in presenting.
Yes, that's one of my goals for such a network, for sure. Other ideas, LinkedIn, is that the right platform? We have a start there. I mean, I think part of the problem with the LinkedIn group has been they just didn't have enough content on it. Personally, I guess, I mean, I don't want to show my ignorance. I'm in it, I get notifications, but is that a good platform to build from? Could we make it, and if it's not, what's the alternative? We have the Facebook group also, and we could simultaneously, that's what we've been doing for the reunion, we push the same content out on the LM group and part of it is just making people aware that they could join these groups and opening it to JDs, opening it to law students, opening it to any of that sort of Catholic in a broad sense, Jagiellonian in a broad sense related people. But are those the right 2 platforms? I don't know what the alternatives are. Yes.
Closely related to that, I'm so glad to see Elizabeth being here because she came to Krakow while we were in the program, and I took so much from your lecture with regard to ethical lawyering and our responsibility as everything changes, as the speakers alluded to, as technology changes, as how we present ourselves to the world as guardians of the profession that prides itself on the notion of justice. And so she mentioned about the society, the Jagiellonian society, right? And so that could be a venue, because I personally, for instance, do not have a LinkedIn profile. Yeah. And I used to have one, but because of the various threats and risks associated with that, I don't have one. But something which is very unique to the partnership between Catholic and Jagiellonian could be as mediated through your society, could be an excellent venue in terms of the changing expectations of lawyers in our roles and our ethical, social responsibilities, I think is what's going to differentiate the kind of international lawyering. And I want to also talk about my externship that Professor Kurtz directed. I took a course also while doing my internship as becoming an international lawyering. So that was, we did it exclusively through online. I never had to meet with him, so taking advantage. So now I meet with you regularly, and so, but it was extremely helpful to have that practical experience be complemented through the advances in technology as mediated through knowledgeable and experienced professionals. And I see a lot of strengths that could take us forward in terms of networking in that direction.
One of the things I'm thinking is that coming from this, we should probably set up a small working group with people like Tomasz and Wojtek and Mikash, and have a little group, just kind of explore some options and really start to think about the whole very nicely set out list of things that Tomasz said, and then we could, have a broader discussion about something that would really work, that what we're trying to achieve and what it would work. So I think, yes, Catherine.
And not to forget Tomasz's point that you need to be face-to-face with people. And so building in things like this opportunity, and Lee and I both work with a large group of international law teachers that we have conferences every 2 years. And I'd say we have very good friends because every 2 years we see pretty much people and they're dedicated to coming. So maybe there could be some things here, there could be things in Poland. It wouldn't include everybody, but just all the ideas that I got from listening to the panelists today about internships, externships, things that could be done, topics of interest that might be a symposium on that people would be interested in participating. So to keep opportunities open for forums where people actually get together.
Yes, definitely right.
And there is one point that there will be, in this group, there will be always the same group of people. Because there are certain people who want to get involved, want to be in the network, and others just don't care. And I think it's not possible to change it because...
or maybe not...
don't care, but they don't have time, and they are not those type of people who want to
There's
get
also
involved.
a challenge,
I think so.
Challenge of people being scattered all over the world, so I think this makes it more of a challenge for us.
Yeah, I think you will never get, 100%, and you probably never get 50%. But certainly in terms of this, we had some different people in Krakow 10 years ago than we have now. I mean, in terms of people who didn't make it this time within the LL.M group, I mean, there definitely were a list of people who genuinely did want to come, and would come, to something, in the future. And as I said, with the summer program people, I think it's really been a question of what an effective way to communicate. And again, you're not going to get 100%, but once I actually contacted some Americans specifically that I knew, they said, "Oh, really?" Because they, of course, weren't paying any attention to the email stuff. And a couple of them said to me, "Well, maybe will there be something in Poland next year?" And of course, for them, it was kind of more exciting to think of going to Poland than coming here. So I think part of it is without the goal of having 100% and knowing that a lot of people won't care. But I think there is a pretty good core of people who are interested. And I think that in any rotating thing, they won't always be the same people because people have other commitments. But I think it is good to talk more about expanding. Magda.
Yeah, I just wanted to touch on the point. I think it's always hard to be a first mover. So if we make these events like a recurring thing, and we make this thing sexy, and we make this thing, seeing that it works actually, and there is even like a small group of people, but they're interested in coming back together every couple of years, be it in Poland, be it maybe in Germany one day. So I think if we make this series of events and we say, okay, let's meet every 5 years, every 3 years, it doesn't necessarily need to be every year. I think we'll gather more and more people who actually, like some of us, some of our friends couldn't be here today because of some personal or business obligations. So, but you know, the more we try, I think we could gather like the snowball effect. So, so beginnings will be hard, but I think it's worth it.
And again, Kasia and Gaspar are very good at this. They are, I think, making very carefully recording a lot of things from this event. So those will be up and around. So it's also getting people who weren't able to come or maybe quite hadn't processed what was happening, and at least after the event, getting them think about, oh, that would have been interesting. And I think also there's been discussions about, I mean, there have been topics for like 10 symposiums that people have been discussing. So was the point Catherine was making, I think, having opportunities to have at different points some conferences where there's a topic that's related to law practice that people would, maybe it's even tax deductible for them to attend. And but they might see it, you know, because I think more and more, because that also gives a more effective networking event, because if you're talking about substantive things, that then it leads to conversations where people are trading business cards and the kinds of things that really, you know, I think do encourage lawyers to think this is worth their time.
Just wanted to say a few words as a person who's trying to keep our fan page of the LL.M alive and interesting and learning in the process, because obviously I'm not the professional PR person. But I think the first step and the biggest challenge is actually for people to know that the website, that the fan page exists, and to start following, which, well, we're trying to do that, but it's not always that easy. So I invite you to follow us from now on, and we promise we'll try to build on these events and all the ideas, and to kind of grow more.
And I think for all of you to post content, I mean, to make links to interesting articles, links to events that are happening, because, you know, it's part of somebody thinking, if I look at this place, I will find things that are useful to me. And that's, you know, what motivates people.
Vivid, because you just can't put something once 3 months, but you have to, like, say once a week or something, because otherwise the people will forget about this.
Yes, Olga's doing this for the American Law Program, so we have our growing social media experts here. Okay, well, this has been terrific. I'm going to say 2 things, and we're going to, in a moment, you're going to be free for 10 minutes. The library, everyone must go see the library exhibit. It's terrific. There's been 2 different things said, and Steve Marchington is very much responsible for suggesting this. Francis Brillanti did a fabulous job of putting it together. It's 2 o'clock when there'll be a sharing of reminiscences. It's open always. At one point it said 3 and it said 2, somewhere else 2 p.m. Okay, and then if you're going to the picnic, you go to the picnic and then come over to the library. So everyone can now get up, stretch your legs, get your coffee. Dean Jefferson stayed at the law school. He's here at 11:30. I'm sure many of you are going to stay for that. Some more people coming in. Sarah.
Can I just make one other quick announcement? Sure. I'm Sarah Duggan, and I'll be leading the museum tour, so a number of you have already signed up for it. You can see me in the crowd because I dress very discreetly, okay? So that is, please be there about 2:45 if you're going to the museum tour.
Okay, great. All right, thanks very much. Thanks for being here.